Welcome back to Soccer Dads, and today I had the opportunity to talk with another college coach. This is an interview that you will not want to miss. All right, well, welcome back to Soccer Dads. Today I have Coach Allen from Highland Community College. Thank you, Coach, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead and, if you could, provide a little bit about your background.
Virginia is where I lived most of my life, so I grew up there, played soccer club over there. My senior year was state player of the year for 3A, but was real late kind of into the whole scene of recruiting. Didn't know what was much about it. Had a JUCO coach reach out to me, asked about my situation, told him I had a bunch of D3 offers, and he was like, "Well, do you know about JUCO?" And I was like, "No." So he explained it to me. I was like, "You know what? That sounds like a cool opportunity to take a chance on myself," and I did. I went there as a forward, and I actually got changed into a center back and left back. So there was a big change for me there, but it worked out really well for me. I ended up being a 2-year starter, 2-year captain, and then I actually went on to play Division I soccer over at Eastern Illinois. I was a COVID kid, so I ended up getting 4 years there. I had the COVID year, and then unfortunately some injuries, so I picked up a redshirt year. But overall, my time there was really well. Went ahead and got my master's there as well, and that's actually where I started my coaching career. So as I was doing my master, I started being on staff with our men's team there. Did that for 2 seasons, and then moved over to Highland.
All right. So I love the story how, you started at the JUCO level and moved up. It's kind of finding that right fit and kind of, like if you're talented enough, you're going to play. So that's awesome to hear that, and you can move up. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to start at D1 before so that's awesome to hear. So let's kind of get into a little bit of recruiting. What are some of your school's recruiting needs right now?
Right now, I would say center mids and some forwards. I think, we've gotten some players back from last year. I think the back line's going to be solid. Really graduate a lot of that midfield and offensive force.
All right. And from a recruiting standpoint, since it is a community college, how does that kind of differ from, say, a 4-year university side?
Yeah, so I think the great thing about the 2-year junior college route is you're not playing against you're not playing against seniors, graduate students, redshirt juniors. You're coming in, you're playing against kids who are just a year older than you. They just finished up their first career in the college scene, so it's like you come in and you have a real, I would say, fair chance at getting on the field. Earning a lot of minutes and really getting yourself into the college scene. You also go ahead and get your first 2 years out the way at a much cheaper rate than if you go to a 4-year. So then you're happy because you're playing. You're saving some money that way, and then you still have the chance to go on to a 4-year level and get a chance to earn another scholarship possibly and make school even cheaper for yourself.
Just talking about your school and your conference and stuff like that.
Yeah. So our program is fairly new. I think this is really like its 5th year. The first 2 years, COVID kind of canceled them. And then, so this last 3 years has been its real season. Plays in the KJCCC and the Division II ranks. But Highland itself, it's a little bit more of a smaller school. But, the atmosphere, it's such a community-friendly place. And when you go there, it's you and a bunch of other athletes plus a couple other students there. And it is, you get to know everybody. You're close with all the other teams. And then it's like you get to play at this amazing level. And so, yeah, the KJC has got a bunch of competitive schools in it. Johnson, KCK, Neosha, Allen, Pratt. So, it's a good conference. It's a competitive conference. And I think no matter who you're playing, it's always a fight.
Yeah, and I know, some people look at the levels of soccer and be like, oh, it's JUCO. But there is a lot of talent at the JUCO level. So don't let, if you're listening to this, don't let it fool you. There is talent at every level of soccer, and especially at JUCO level as well.
Yes, 100%. It's just kind of like any level. You can go to a Division III school, and there's some Division IIIs that could compete and beat Division II, even Division I's possibly. And it's the same way with junior colleges. Sometimes you've got those players who could go on to play Division I, but maybe it was just a fact of their class was just a hard class, or even their grades, they slipped up, and it's like the coach is like, hey, we need you to get your grades together. So you go to the community college route, and next thing you know, you're playing against these Division I caliber athletes, and they're just at a smaller level right now because they needed it. And you've got kids who can go on, they prove themselves. Maybe they just needed to be seen a little bit more. Maybe they needed just a little bit more development. But no matter what level you go to, you're going to find kids who can compete all across the board, from junior college, NAIA, D3, D2, Division I. And I think that's the great part. You get to train with some of these kids and see that you wouldn't normally see because they decided to go that route. Take a chance on themselves, develop, get their schooling right, and then they go off and they get these great opportunities.
Correct. That's really good. And what kind of players, athletes do you kind of look for as a coach?
Obviously, we want to look for great players, but I think before that is you're really looking for people. It's a quick 2 years for you. So it's like you don't want to spend time trying to have a bad apple on your team. You want your freshman class to come back, and if you have a kid who just, was kind of sucking the energy from the team, then you could lose the possibility of losing freshmen that year as well. So really looking at your body language during a game you're winning 5-0, a game you're losing 5-0, what does it look like? What are you doing in all moments? Are you working back on both ends of the ball? Are you going forward if you're a defender? Are you communicating with your teammates? When things don't go the way you want, are you one who's shutting down? Are you trying to problem solve? And I think an even bigger indicator of that is, how do you look when you come off the field? You come off the field, maybe you're the captain, maybe you've played all these minutes, maybe you guys have had a great season, you've got 1 goal or 2 or so, and the coach wants to sub you out and maybe put in a kid who hasn't got that much time. Are you jogging off the field? Are you happy? Are you shaking your teammate's hand, cheering on the bench? Or are you on the bench sulking? Because if that's what you're doing, then it's like, it's all about you and not about the team. So you're definitely looking, we're looking for team atmosphere first, and then you. Because if the team succeeds, ultimately you're going to succeed as well. So, but back to the soccer-wise, we're looking for players who've got potential. I think for us, it's more of, we're not trying to compete and find the kids who are necessarily like the diamond. We're looking for the ones that are the diamonds in their rough. Who's got the athleticism and maybe needs to fix up their touch a little bit more? Who needs a little bit more game IQ, or vice versa? You've got a good touch, you've got good game IQ, but right now you're too small. You're a little too timid. You're lacking that first step or two. We're looking for those kids that we think, we see the potential in, and they just need a little bit more guidance, a little bit more help to get and unlock their full potential.
Correct. Now, I think it was very important to hear kind of what you said. Like, when you're recruiting, and for players that are listening, like, you are always being evaluated. When a college coach is there to look at you, like, you're being evaluated when you're on the bench, how you're, supporting your teammates, coming off the field, like you said. If you make a mistake, how do you respond? So it's great to hear, that you guys have that same type of philosophy as well. So let's go into kind of like when you get a player and say, like yourself, you changed your position when you came into, the college ranks. How does that conversation kind of go? Or, everyone's like, oh, I'm a striker, but then no, you're actually a center back or an outside back. How do you handle that kind of stuff?
That's a great question. For me, it wasn't too much of a conversation, and I think for most players, if you really want to play, it's not a conversation. Coaches coach, players play. You have to believe in your coach. I wasn't unfamiliar with center back or left back. I played it occasionally for my club, just depending on what we needed. And coaches ask you that all the time in the recruiting. It's like, oh, where do you feel most comfortable? I see you play here, and then it's like, but where else can you play? So me and my coaches had that conversation. Our center back was out of the country at that moment. I was like, yeah, I can fill in there. Didn't really think it'd be a permanent switch for me, but like I said, when I look back at my time, I was the kid. I had great athleticism. My touch obviously could work on it, but with my back to goal, that's where I struggled. When I'm already facing the goal and I can drive forward, I was much more effective that way, and I still found myself getting up the field. Changing position isn't anything crazy, honestly. A very common one, for instance, is wingers to outside backs. You
Correct.
know, you go there, you go to a 4-year school, and guess what? You got an insane wing in front of you. You don't have a chance. So what does coach do? He puts you as an outside back because same part of the field, same responsibility, but just a little bit more defensive now.
Yep.
So I don't think it's going to be a conversation. It's going to be you're at practice, coach puts you there, and from there on, you kind of make it what it is. If you're going to sit there and sulk and not do the best that you can, then the coach is going to realize that. And now, instead of looking at you to even put you in, he's looking at another kid. He's looking at the kid that moved from forward to center back to left back, wherever it is, from a winger to a center mid. Who went in there, who gave it their all, and who's figuring out how to adapt. Because when you can play multiple positions and you can play them well, you understand the game better. As a forward who went to a center back, I understand what forwards were looking to do. I understood what made it hard. What didn't I like to play against as a forward? What did I like to play against? So it gives you that knowledge on the field, and it's up to you to use it, because if you utilize it right, then, you just got something else in your arsenal.
Correct. No, that's awesome. No, I think it is very important. I mean, you touched it right, hit the nail on the head there. Being able to play multiple positions is a great attribute for a lot of athletes. I know a lot of people or athletes are like, oh, I'm only this, I'm only that. Like, you're a soccer player first, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yep.
So let's kind of go into your roster a little bit, like international versus stateside. How does that kind of look on your current team's roster?
So on our current team roster, when I got here, we had seven internationals, and that's kind of what our school allows us right now. Each school kind of goes a different route. But for this class coming in right now, I've got three. I've got two girls from Jamaica, I've got a girl from Brazil, and I like to bring in a couple of internationals because they see the game different. They play it different. Typically a lot more technical sometimes and don't quite have that raw athleticism. But they bring a lot of game IQ because most of them grow up watching the game. They love the game, maybe a little bit more than American girls. So I like that they bring it in, and I love to blend the styles. See how Jamaicans play, Brazilians play, Europeans play.
Yeah.
And then you bring in some girls, and I think it's also just good for culture. If everyone's from the same area, if everyone thinks the same, then no one's thinking.
Correct.
You got
Now, yeah.
different struggles. So
Yeah, having that different diversity, learning strengths and weaknesses from everybody, it only makes your team better in the long run there.
yeah, 100%.
All right, so let's kind of go into like your off-season program. What kind of expectations do you have for your players going into the off-season and then into like the preseason?
In the off season, I'll break it into two. So like in our spring, I want you to be so uncomfortable. I really want you to push yourself. I want you to do things that you're not used to. If after the season's gone, we already understand what went well, what didn't. Can you put yourself in these situations that you were in? Like, they kept putting me on my left foot, and I just felt like I was useless. Okay, use your left foot, the entire practice as much as you can. Like, the spring is for you to develop, and that's what I expect. Like, we're going to get you faster, we're going to get you stronger, more technical. So for me in the off season, like, it's so much more about your individual growth than the team in the spring. Because if you grow more as a player, then once you come back to the team, the whole team is better. But leading into like the summer, for especially freshmen, it's just, I think, get fit, and build your confidence. Keep doing what you're doing. Take the summer workout serious. Don't come in thinking just because you were an all-state in high school or the captain or you scored X, Y, and Z and the amount of goals that it's just going to translate over. I think in the summer it's, put your head down, work, do everything you can, and just come in ready and hungry. For sophomores and upperclassmen, it's like you've got a season under your belt. You know what it takes to be fit. You know what the game demands. For you, you're really fine-tuning the things that you need to work on, or fine-tuning the things that your coach wants to see. If your coach wants to play a certain way, he wants the center backs calm on the ball, finding the six, doing things like that. If he wants his forward, to be a hold-up forward, or he or she to be a hold-up forward, working on those things. At that point, you know exactly what you need to do to get on the field. So it's really just take it serious. Work on the things that you're not that great at.
Correct, and I love it. pretty much everything you said there was awesome. I kind of believe in a lot of exactly what you just said there, so that's cool. So, kind of into the wrapping up of this, is there anything else about your school, your program you'd like to add?
For us, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and it kind of goes for everyone in our program, is always best you can respond to a coach, because you never know where a coach might end up, or you never know how coaches talk. Even now I talk with some of my old teammates going who are coaching. I talk with some of my old coaches at different levels, and it's amazing. The networking is great. So next thing you know, you're talking about a kid. He's like, oh yeah, I try to recruit him. But for our program, I think it's just reach out, and don't take it the wrong way if coaches don't respond. Sometimes your email just gets lost, they get busy. So I know I try to do my best to always respond to a kid. Even I've had a couple 27s reach out early to me, like come February, and I wasn't quite ready to work on those 27s, but I did my best to respond and be like, hey, thanks for reaching out. We haven't started your class yet. When we do, we're going to get back in contact again. And I think that's one thing that me and my staff really take pride in, is like we want to try to communicate with the kids as best as we can. If you reach out to us, we want to let you know that we've seen it, because we know how hard the recruiting process is, and we want you to feel like, hey, we care about you.
No, that's really good to hear. And on that, like, as kind of more in the community college realm, how many emails a day or highlight videos do you get from potential student athletes? So, kind of like a day, a week.
That varies. I think with us being on the women's side and fairly new, we're not getting quite as many as I would like right now. Probably getting somewhere between 5 to 10 every, maybe like 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're sitting at.
All right. But, I mean, at least you're responding, because I know, like, when my sons went through, like, when you're kind of sending those emails and you don't get a response, you're like, oh, man, you get discouraged, but
Yeah, you do.
you just have to realize coaches are busy as well. They have they have programs to run, and so it's
No,
good.
yeah, 100%. Definitely. Don't get discouraged. When I was coaching at the Division I level, I was easily getting 30+ emails a day.
Correct.
And no, maybe a couple of the power fours have the ability to, but most, you don't know what they have. Maybe it's the head coach and assistant. Maybe it's the head coach and 2 grad assistants. When you have that on top of a whole season, trying to figure out how to win games, how to hold your results, how to not lose, what we need to do is survive and get to playoffs or whatever it is. You don't have the time to respond to all of them. So I mean, keep shooting your shot, and then I think it's also being realistic. Looking back at my path, I definitely didn't go watch enough games. If you've got a school near you and you want to play there, you want to play at a level similar to that, I think you got to go watch the game, because everyone wants to go to a Duke, to a Clemson, to one of these big name schools, Michigan. But the amount of us that can go play there is very small. And then when you look at it, you're really like, you know what? I don't fit in there. Because do you want to play, or do you just want to be a part of a Division I roster?
Correct. And I think you hit it again on the nail. Like, too many student athletes, I don't feel, truly watch college soccer. They'll watch the Premier League or, some MLS, the women's MLS type stuff. But they really don't understand the level that college soccer is at. Either JUCO, D2, NAI, it doesn't matter, D1. And they kind of, they don't go in there, and that's why there's so many transfers every year.
100%. And especially with the way that the landscape is going now, this 5-for-5 passes, it kind of messes up a little bit of the recruiting for some of these schools, just because it had classes in the works already, but now it changes everything. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as a student athlete, you got to think about what matters to you. Are you looking to, like, try to play your first year? Are you looking, you're okay with sitting and learning? How much do you want to develop? It's very hard, but I think the more you watch it and the more you look into it, and not just think, oh, I got to go Division I, then a lot more doors open, and you're like, you know what? I can really get a good education and have a great experience.
Correct. And that is very important. Finding that right fit is just so important along this process. Well, Coach Allen, thank you for taking some time. I really do appreciate it.